Alright, here we go again. I'm basically going to start showing you guys how to seam a latex mask. Here, this is my Alien Invader piece. If we zoom in here, we can basically see this is how a raw cast is going to come out of the mold. It's a two-piece mold, so you are going to have this seam line basically running down all over the entire sculpture, which is basically going to get dremeled off and cleaned up. Sometimes that might have a little bit more of what we call flashing. It might stick out a little bit more. I actually started trimming this before I started shooting, but the basic materials for this that I use are, over here we basically have just a regular utility knife, a craft knife. With extra blades, you always want to have a good sharp blade. And when they come fresh out of the box, you also want to wipe off the blade because they have that oil that's on there, which will actually, I heard, will deteriorate the latex. So just wipe it down and keep them nice and sharp, and you can trim as close to the sculpture as you can, just to get that seam line to be as small as possible. I also have a few scissors over here, which I basically use to cut the bottom of it. You usually have extra flash hanging it down, and this just gives it a nice clean edge to work with. Over here I have just a regular Dremel. The Dremel tip is basically a polishing wheel. It's best to use a bullet tip Dremel, however I can't always find them, so this is what I have right now. I need to go pick up some more. Most of the time whenever I seem to find them, they're always in the big packages, so I have to find a new spot to get them. But that would be preferable. If not, these do work. That's what I have to use sometimes. For cleaning up the sculpture and really breaking down this, what I use is naphtha, and I also use a little bit of really fine sandpaper. And with dipping that in the naphtha, after you Dremel it, it'll start to bite into the latex, and it'll start to break it down, so that you can, it's almost like sanding it down. It'll be nice and smooth so that you can get a nice good seam line out of there. Basically I just keep that in my bottles. Also, I have latex here in a little squirt bottle. Not really sure if I have too many of them on this one, but if you have any areas on your sculpture that are a little bit indented, or you need to, you know, little pockets that actually go into your sculpture. Don't have any on this one, but if we look up at one of my other ones, my Lucifer piece, you'll be able to see in the neck area there's a whole bunch of holes and everything, and that's something you would fill in with latex. Just squeeze a little bit in there and it'll actually shrink a little bit as it dries, so it'll actually fill in the hole nicely. Later on I'll go ahead and cut some of these areas out. These are little bubbles in the mold. But I'm good. Let's go ahead and get started with this. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and show you a few bits and pieces of what I do. I'm going to work on this small area right here just to get the idea around. Basically the same thing throughout the whole sculpture, but when working with the Dremel, you're going to want to be really have a really light touch, and it'll take a little bit of getting used to. But basically you're going to want to sand down that edge real soft, but you don't want to go too far to where you actually indent your sculpture too much. So make sure you're not in too pretty of an area, because this does get extremely messy. You also don't have to work with it on a stand. You can put it on your lap to get around. You can move the sculpture around to get to certain areas. But this is the area that I just started seaming. Right over here. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see right here that it's dremeled down. And what I'll do is I'll take a small piece of sandpaper, I'll dip it into the naphtha, and basically just work over it. The sandpaper will actually help it get a little bit smooth, and as you're doing that, the naphtha will bite in and start to break down the latex. You might have to go back in with your Dremel depending on how you went the first time. Get any gaps in here or any issues with that, you can always go back in with the latex and just fill in. But that's pretty much the process. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out and you guys can watch me do a little bit more, but basically this is what we do for the whole mask. You can put your hand inside the mask also, it helps a little bit to tell how deep you're going. Also helps you push out certain areas that you may have to try to get around. Like that area was a good spot to have the bullet tip Dremel. Unfortunately, I need a new one. Right here, there's a few areas that are in the sculpture right here that I wouldn't say I went too deep, but I sort of nicked up, and that's some of those areas that I would just fill in with latex later. It'll dry, I'll wait for that to dry up, and then I can go ahead and re-Dremel, re-sand. Also do that with the detail. If you have any details that you lose over the seam area, you can carve them back in by adding latex to the seam.